Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the eSellerCafe news show podcast thing. My name is Dave, and today is the 18th of December. This is the Christmas edition of the podcast, of the news show. We'll be giving you all the news from the past week, as well as a few pieces that have come up today and what we can be looking forward to this week. And as always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Richard. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm only wearing a shirt I've worn probably about doing 10 of these broadcasts. So unlike yourself, who actually dressed up for the podcast, the video cast, the podcast.
I know. I was tempted to dye the beard grey. For anyone listening into the podcast, I'm wearing a horrendous Father Christmas T-shirt.
So I will try to remember for the since we're not going to have obviously a show next Monday since it's Christmas, but we're going to try to do a year-ending show. Probably Friday or something like that. I might get one of those 2018 little things.
the glasses thing. Oh dear. Yes. Well, there we go. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining. And if you're on the podcast, unfortunately, you cannot see the monstrosity that I am wearing. However, if you head over to the YouTube link, you'll be able to see it there. So I do apologize. Right, a few notes before we kick off this week. It is crunch time for Christmas sales. Obviously, this is the final week. You've now, I think, 4 shipping days. If you are shipping quickly in the UK, probably 2 or 3 in the US. Yeah, don't forget.
Well, I think this is the time that for sellers, especially in the US, because of the size of the country, if you have the option to offer expedited shipping, even at a discount or free, in order to make last-minute sales, I think it might be worth it. But if you can't afford to do it, at least make sure that your customers know that you can ship in a timely manner so that the items will arrive before Christmas. Because as we go through crunch time, people start looking less at how much things cost and worry more about, can I get it in time?
Very, very, very true. And that's the same for the UK. Obviously, we had a bit of a wobble at the beginning of last week with some snow that arrived. That's largely gone now. So again, there should be no excuse. I don't think there's any. In fact, it even said that we might hit double figures this week in temperature, which is unusual. So the snow risk seems to have gone. So again, this week you still have a good opportunity to be
get the flip flops and shorts out.
Oh yeah, it's summer. It's anything over 10 degrees. So yes, again, Richard makes a fantastic point. Don't think that the sales period is over. There's people like me who like to leave things to the very last minute and will therefore be panic buying Thursday, Friday. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Matt, our sort of our third wheel here at eSellerCafe, for the past 3 or 4 years, he's tested Amazon to the limit. Last year, he did a same-day delivery test for Amazon on Christmas Eve. He may do that again this year because obviously Christmas Eve. Oh no, Christmas Eve is a Sunday. Oh yeah, you can still do same day delivery here on Amazon. So we will see. Well, if
I remember, I may have to try that myself. Although I will be over in the Fort Myers area for Christmas to visiting my parents. But why not try something? Don't buy something that you need for Christmas. Buy something just to see if they'll get it to you.
I mean, Matt did this with a Nintendo Wii about 4 years ago, which was their main gift for his children. That's how. Can you imagine trying to explain that if that went wrong? Luckily, Amazon delivered, and I think they've always delivered whenever he's put them to the test. I'll ask him tomorrow, see if he's going to do the same this year, because it's worth a story if get him to document it for us and stick it on the blog. And on that note, we should mention the video sponsor. Once again, it's Understanding E. Understanding E provides training materials, whether it be video tutorials or blog content or emails and all this other stuff for small to medium-sized businesses who are looking to sell online, multiple channels, eBay, Amazon, using Magento as multi-channel software. They've also just released their email marketing course. You should have received an email. They did a sponsored email for us last week, I believe, or the week before. The email marketing course is now fully live. They also do outsourcing, a whole host of other things. So go and check out Understanding eSellerCafe.com, and thank you to them for being the sponsor of this podcast. We do have a few, we've got a few conversations going on for new sponsors into the new year. If you are a business looking for some additional shout outs on these podcasts, on these new shows, get in touch. We are open to the discussions of sponsorship. And also, we have some new exciting news this week. We have a dedicated discussion group over on Facebook. We set this up just merely a few days ago. We thought, hey, why not set up a discussion area where people who are readers of eSellerCafe, want to keep up to date with the news and goings on in e-commerce, can actually talk to each other. You know, comments on a blog page can be a little bit sterile. Myself and Richard are in there. So again, we can all get involved with discussion, chat, and everything else. The link to that is underneath this video on YouTube. Click the show more button or head over to the eSellerCafe.com website and you'll see a post there. Facebook discussion group is now live. Click in there. It's a closed group. So again, no riffraff. It's literally, but if you request to join.
Well, I'm in it.
No riffraff apart from Richard. So if you request to join, we'll let you in. We can get the discussion going. I always find it's much better to have to talk with other people doing the same stuff as you. They may have come across problems that you have, may have answers, and just to get chatting really about what's going on in the world. And
I'm gonna one of my projects for this week is to actually have a link or banner on the front page of the site that will always link to it, because yes, we just posted a post about it, but obviously these posts start to disappear after a few days. So we are going to have a permanent link up there somewhere shortly.
And finally, on a little bit of news notes, myself and Richard very kindly joined me to do a video on US sales tax and e-commerce and what international sellers should know. For anyone who doesn't know, I run a separate sort of YouTube channel called The Manco Entrepreneur, and I get asked so often from UK sellers, where do I stand regarding sales tax if I'm selling to like Amazon.com FBA? If I'm selling to the USA, what's my sort of liabilities? And it's a great question, one that is clearly not answered enough because I get asked it so often. And I actually got Richard to share his insight, being US citizen, on how the sort of sales tax works. And it was a great video. So again, check out that. We did a story about it on eSellerCafe as well. You can watch the video, I think about a 40-minute video where we just talk about the different how tax seems to work, both in the UK, but also in the US as well. And what the sort of liabilities are, and you'll be pleased to know TLDR is not many. So yeah, that was a good video, and
it boils down to it's such a complicated mess and there's not one really place to go to do it, because the federal government is not involved in sales taxes, to give you a short version of it, and it's all state by state. So really, for UK or any international seller, if you watch the video, the bottom line is you'll pretty much find out that if you're a small seller, don't worry about it.
yeah. That was basically the message we took. They have the IRS, is it the Inland Revenue Service?
No, Internal Revenue Service.
Internal Revenue Service. They don't have an External Revenue Service.
Well, the Internal Revenue Service only deals with income, So
right. I guess
sales.
It's basically a hot mess, and you shouldn't really worry about it unless you're doing incredible numbers, and the American government might want, I think I want some of that. Yeah. With that said, let's get straight onto the lightning round. We are on the minutes today. Richard has somewhere to be. So I
have lunch with my mom.
That is the best place to be, I find.
Yeah, that's a
perfect example of why you should escape. And not just talk rubbish with me for an extra half an hour. We'll kick off with the lightning round. As always, the full articles are underneath the YouTube video or over on eSellerCafe.com. So if you want more information, go and check them. Richard, over to you.
Yes. Okay. American Express eliminates collecting signatures for purchases. Now, if you're in the United States, you go like, well, I already see that when I go to McDonald's or you go to a lot of grocery stores for small amounts. You just swipe a card, and it applies to every credit card. You don't even sign them anymore. However, internationally, that is not as common. They still want signatures, and like when I was in Germany just a few weeks ago, it was like, okay, you got to sign everything. And they even check the signature on the back, which I don't even sign my cards anymore. It's kind of goofy because no one checks for signatures.
It's so true. I've got cards in my wallet which are just not signed.
Yeah,
which is apparently illegal, but I've not.
It's supposedly if you don't sign the card, but according to card member agreements, the merchant can then take the card from you. Exactly. Something like that. But anyways, what American Express is actually doing is they're taking it one step further. They're going to eliminate it for all purchases, not just small purchases. Most of the credit card companies, including American Express, had allowed like $25, $50 in the past. American Express, starting next year, is going to go globally, no signature at any retail store. That's kind of an interesting thing, and then basically the reason is they're saying, buying at retail is changing. People are using contactless. It's like no one gets signatures anymore. So that's really what it boils down to. Next story is WhatsApp has defined and given a little more clues about the future of its business accounts. It effectively just explained in an FAQ, there are three types of accounts: verified, confirmed, and not verified or not confirmed. And it also seems to, if you look at the story, especially since they're working with KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, sorry, they seem to be working on integrations that are beyond just communications, maybe something that gets almost into Zendesk style customer service abilities. It's going to be one to watch. I mean, it's a Facebook-owned company, and obviously Facebook with its Messenger is working on a system, but it seems like even so they're working on the same general concept, but there might be a little bit of a difference between those two products, and that could be interesting for some folks to look at. Then Etsy's CEO Josh Silverman released a video on YouTube where he just kind of talked about what's been going on and where Etsy's going. It's an interesting view. We really just highlighted the video instead of trying to, go through it, line by line. Sometimes when you take things out of context, they don't sound quite as good. And I think if you watch the entire video, I think you start realizing, they do have their stuff together over at Etsy. And I think he is trying to bring Etsy into the right direction.
Because part of me is a bit disappointed because I'm not sure whether we set is it the end of the year or is it like March or April where we predicted that Etsy would be sold? And it's not looking likely anymore, is it? It's like,
no, over the weekend, I
incredibly well.
Made a private prediction to Dave saying, Bitcoin is going to hit 20,000 and hit 99. So I got it really close. On this one, I'm way off because I think you and I both.
But fair play to them; they're doing a great job. And
yeah. And that's not to say that they may not get sold after all, because they are definitely, trying to make the company profitable, and potentially it could be still a takeover target. So don't rule that out yet. Let's see. And then also another Etsy story. Etsy announced that they're moving all their operational stuff onto the Google Cloud platform. And that was one of the parts that, if we read between the lines 6 months ago when all that went down with the shake up in management, changing over changing out the CTO, Chief Tech Officer, that basically they were just trying to build their own infrastructure, which is stupid and just expensive, and just use somebody else's. And obviously there's three big ones out there: Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Amazon was the least likely, since they're obviously trying to beat up on Etsy a bit. So it came down to probably just Google and Microsoft, and they chose Google. So they say it'll be a 2-year process. I don't think it's going to really impact anybody. If anything, it's probably going to improve a lot of services and speed and globally, because of Google's global reach.
There we go. Interesting stuff from Etsy there. Onto my list. First up, Jpmorgan Acquires We Pay. And this is actually the first time the Jpmorgan has procured a fintech company like WePay, a financial technology firm. And Kevin Sproles, who's the founder and CEO of Illusion, came out and said, With this partnership, the small, medium-sized businesses we work with will be able to get up and running instantly with next-day settlement, competitive rates, and all the payment processing tightly integrated. So again, it looks like it's an interesting one from Jpmorgan and Chase, and yeah, nice news from We Pay as well. I've personally never used We Pay, but I've obviously heard about them. Apparently, it's very good software.
Yeah, I think these are all basically, tech grabs. Somebody has a user base, has already built some tech. It's cheap for something like JPMorgan to buy.
It solves a problem for them, or puts another string to the bow. It's an easy deal for them.
Exactly.
Next up, very quick one: importance of Instagram stories in marketing. This was an interesting one that we did. The buzz around Instagram is just growing and growing at the minute, and I think as this influencer marketing grows, which it certainly is doing, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. We, as a business owner, as an e-commerce business owner, you now have to think about, 2018, am I going to have a sort of influencer marketing strategy? And if so, how am I going to go about that? There's lots of influencer marketplaces popping up, which I'm being sort of made aware of and being out to on a few levels. And I think it's very curious. And obviously, Instagram stories is one way of doing that. Last time I checked, or the last numbers that I saw, Instagram's user base was about 400 million, 75 million of which tuned in daily to Instagram. Compared to Facebook, that's a drop in the ocean. But as far as like influencers go, a lot of them prefer Instagram because it's that quick picture and it has that power. That's very visual platform, which is obviously for marketing what you want.
Which why I keep saying, what is Snapchat going to do? I mean, there's like no.
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know what the future is for Snapchat. We said this a long time ago. I mean, me and Richard remember laughing about the ICO, not the ICO, the IPO years ago. So they labeled themselves as a camera company, but then openly said, we may never make profit. I was like, who the hell would buy this? Mental. I have no idea where Snap fits in. I still feel that Snapchat is very popular with the younger people. The younger generation seem to love it. I don't know how the monetization piece comes in to a serious level. I don't see how it's viable for e-commerce properly. I don't see now Instagram do stories as well. I don't see what Snapchat's sort of thing is anymore. Instagram basically stole that from Snapchat. I don't know. I don't know about Snapchat. I don't know where their vision is. I know Evan has made a lot of money though, so fair play to him.
Their vision seems to be in revamping it to be more like everybody else now. That's the latest that I already.
You're just becoming also running, doing the same thing as everyone else. So who knows? But yeah, Instagram stories. I think you will start seeing more and more influencer marketing becoming a bigger deal in 2018 for sure. Next up, Amazon launches Prime services in Singapore. Is what it says on the tin. Singapore, obviously a very compact little island, very easy to offer Prime services, I imagine. You probably need one location. But yeah, they've brought that out to Singapore. Another example of Amazon trying to conquer the East. Obviously, we talked about Amazon. In fact, Richard, you got a story on Amazon Australia coming up a little bit later. But also talks of Amazon South Korea. And so obviously they are going after Asia, and they've just launched Prime in Singapore. Again, it's just good brand awareness in the East for Amazon in the basically in Alibaba's back garden. Full benefits of using overseas suppliers. This was a nice little story you put together for anyone who's sort of looking into private labeling and that sort of stuff. The benefits of using overseas suppliers. To give you a quick rundown, tends to be low-cost manufacturing. If you're looking to China or Taiwan, especially, easy accessibility. Again, if there are a lot of agents now on the ground there, so you're no longer dealing with, in most cases, someone who doesn't speak your language. You're dealing with an English speaker who's native to the region, who can do a lot of the legwork for you. Superior quality. Again, it's often assumed that China is full of, I don't want to be sort of defamatory here, but lower quality items. That's not always the case. You can get some very high quality items made in China. You just need to know where to go. And finally, it gives you the chance to focus on your core business processes.
Somebody many years ago told me, this is even way before me being heavily involved with e-commerce, says, you know, today you can go to China and it's a matter of how much you want to pay. That's the quality you're going to get in return.
Yeah, exactly. But still, because the economies of scale, the amount that you would pay compared to the UK or the US,
correct,
you're still getting more for your money, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So yeah, again, maybe 2018, if you're looking at manufacturing your own products, extending a new line, overseas manufacturing is something which you would definitely be wanting to explore. Might not be perfect for you in whatever product range it is that you're looking into, but it's one that you should not discount.
Yeah.
Next up, Walmart partners with BuzzFeed with their Tasty app. The Tasty app is, I did some reading about this because we don't have it over here in the UK. Apparently it's kind of a big deal in the US. Have you heard of it, Rich?
I've heard of it.
That's more than I had. But basically, the Tasty app was great. It sounds to me like it was very similar to what the BBC here has something called Good Food. It's basically just a directory of recipes and user-submitted content, and again, like influencer-submitted content, registered authors and stuff who could create their own recipes and stuff and show you how to make things with instructions. Walmart has apparently partnered with this is owned by BuzzFeed, by the way. They've partnered with BuzzFeed so that the links to buy the ingredients and the products from the app go straight to the Walmart app. Very cool idea from Walmart. Great idea for BuzzFeed, because you'd imagine there's some sort of affiliate tap in there. Yeah, convenience wins. Next up, Singapore is the top destination for Chinese investment. Again, another Singapore piece, and apparently this is where a lot of the Chinese money is looking to expand business. Previously it was the USA, but due to Trump was the reason that was given, and the current political climate, China seems to be diverting much more of their investment into an area more local. So again, Singapore was the top destination for Chinese investment. Curious to see how that affects the sort of world scale of politics there. And finally, for me, was the Amazon Trends report for the UK 2017. Now, I was actually really impressed with this. Amazon did a really nice job. And in the story that we had was a download link to a PDF. It's basically like an ebook, but I think it's about 12 or 15 pages. But it's not a book, it's just pretty pictures and numbers. And it basically highlights like what regions top product were and how many of this sold and what the most streamed thing on Amazon Instant Video was, Prime Video was. And it just gives you a great insight into basically the trends of 2017. A few weeks ago, we did one about eBay. We published a very similar thing, and we looked at how fidget spinners boomed in June, I think it was, and how you could see how the eBay trends were doing, and Amazon have done exactly the same thing. I think it gives you a great insight into the scope of the UK's the state of play of e-commerce in the UK and the products and what is trending. Very interesting, worth a read, or worth a look. You don't really have to read much.
Just so like a coffee table book, as
it was like a
digital coffee table book.
Yeah, a bit comic-y in a way, the images and the colours and stuff. But yeah, exactly. It's basically flick through it and go, oh, that's cool. Yeah, nice. And it's not very taxing, but very interesting. And that's it from me. Back to you, Rich.
Well, we continue with Amazon. Amazon Sears made another deal with Amazon, this time with the Die Hard brand, which is another one of the big brands that, like Kenmore, has a very good reputation. But because of, Sears is falling in the retail industry, let's put it that way, it's probably losing some sales, and Sears needs money. This is not as big of a news as Kenmore because the dollar amounts aren't as big, and Die Hard is a battery brand. So the things that are being sold on Amazon are like recharges, and there's not that many that are going to be sold in that group. Maybe this will lead to some kind of integration with the battery business and Sears. Maybe you'll be able to go to Amazon one day, choose a battery, and then just go to your local Sears store if they're still around and have them install it. I think investors are going to like this, although it didn't really pop the stock, because it just shows that Amazon has an interest in Sears, and as long as Amazon is working with Sears, maybe that will keep them out of bankruptcy. So we'll see. But it was just another deal, and we'll see where this one goes. The next one was kind of an interesting one, because Overstock.com's been around since the late 90s. I think 97 is when it started. And, they threw a lot of money out initially, like a typical .com, and then sort of found a little bit of a niche home with, I think, home furnishings mostly. And the founder and CEO decided, I want to sell the company, and he wants to concentrate on cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and it's something that Overstock has been involved in for a few years. They were one of the first ones to actually accept Bitcoin as a payment system.
Probably because the founder was so interested in it.
So yeah, I mean, so there's and they've been investing into startups that are in the blockchain space. And he said, well, he made another deal with someone, and he wants to further this deal, and in order to get there, he's going to have to really put his time and effort into that, and he won't be able to really concentrate on Overstock.com. So he wants to find a buyer for it. So we'll see. Is this something that someone like Walmart would pick up? Well, I don't know. What I was curious about is he said, oh, I'm going to sell it in 60, 90 days. It's like, in the middle of a Christmas season, somebody comes on and says, I'm going to sell my business. It's like, wow, it's like kind of
all the due diligence that goes into selling a business within.
Yeah. There was one little interesting snippet to this that kind of caught my eye. Is he said he had a conversation with somebody in Asia, and that was one of the possibilities to get an Asian investor / owner involved. Now, who could possibly be in Asia interested with a U.S. operation? I don't know. Somebody with a lot of money who probably could afford to buy Overstock.com out of pocket change. Who could that possibly be?
Does it begin with Jack?
Yeah, that could be. That could be that Jack guy.
Exactly. Jack Ma. Yeah, he's got a few quid. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. So we're gonna throw it out there. It's speculation only. There's no news or anything on that. But someone like Jack Ma could.
That would be a steal for them as well. That would be.
It would be a steal for them. It would give them an immediate functional operation in the United States.
That would definitely worry Amazon. In fact, Amazon would probably be tempted to buy it just to stop that from happening.
Could be. So could be. Now, Amazon Australia had been around. Actually, now it's almost 2 weeks. When I wrote the story, it was just a little bit over a week old, 10 days, and it had a lot of snafus to get going, and it had a lot of snafus in its first 7 to 10 days. But they released a list of the 10 best-selling items, and they were all pretty much Christmassy items. You could clearly see that trying to get in before Christmas was a good idea, although I did mention, I did put in the story, several people provided some blowback or feedback on Twitter, and I read even more on other social media postings where it's slow, it's expensive, it's a lot of the things that they still need to fix. Unlike Singapore, Australia is slightly bigger. So until they have Prime in Australia, and until they have more warehouses in order to be able to actually fulfill Prime, it's gonna be a little bit of slow going. But Amazon does say that 2018 they want to get into Prime in Australia, and to do that, we are pretty sure there's a Sydney warehouse coming on board sooner than later, because land was purchased. 2/3 of the Australian population lives in major metropolitan areas, so I think they call them greater capital cities in Australia. So if you're not going to worry about the bush, you can probably get there pretty quickly. So, and Amazon does have the money to do it. So we'll keep watching. Then we had an interesting one pop up over the weekend. It's a new startup, because they've been around for 8 months, but it's a company called Slider, and it's a Lebanese-owned company, or at least the owners are but they are out of the UK now. So it was kind of weird the way the whole thing was presented when I got the news. But effectively, they won some kind of competition in the UK that was a cooperation with the Lebanese bank, and so they started Slider. Now, Slider is an e-commerce site, and what they're doing differently is instead of showing you a price and saying this is our best price, you have to buy credits, and every time you want to see a price, you have to give up some of your credits, and every time somebody slides, the price of that item goes down. So it's sort of a reverse auction. You're kind of like, if something is $1,000, you might not be willing to pay $1,000 in the beginning, but if you might, it's kind of a game. They're saying they're doing very well with it. I've seen some similar, not just like it, but similar things in the United States where people are trying to do these bid things where you bid up, but you have to buy bids, and that's how they're funding it. And then they go on TV and advertise, oh, you can get this Apple iPad for $3. Well, yeah, sort of, because all the other people paid for bidding on it, and they made in the meantime probably $1,000, and the final price of it was $3 to whoever the last bidder was. It's kind of an odd thing, but this seems more genuine than this, what I call than this bidding thing that I've seen in the U.S. Definitely worth keeping an eye on and see if this style of e-commerce will catch on, or if this company is going to grow, or somebody's going to pick them up, or whatever the future may be for them.
And then this last one, thing I always get with marketplaces like that is profitability. So many marketplaces or new marketplaces struggle to be profitable because they have to try so hard to get people on board. It's one of those chicken and egg things. You need the buyers, but in order to attract the buyers, you need the sellers, and in order to attract the sellers, you need the buyers, and it's an endless loop. Yeah. And if Sliders, I imagine Sliders taken on investment for this, and
I think they got some money from this competition is how they got going. So
okay, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long they stay around and if they can make it profitable or not.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about any VC investment, so that would probably be the next step for them.
Yeah,
then this story Paul posted yesterday, and it's actually our most popular story right now. Amazon's second HQ search starts in Atlanta, Georgia? ? Well, I have to make sure I say this correctly because I have a word for that newspaper that's not so nice. The Atlanta Journal and Constitution, I think it's called AJC, through public records, figured out that a lobbyist for Amazon had registered with the state. Now, Amazon has obviously warehouses pretty much in every state here in the United States, so I don't think they're going to hire a high-power lobbyist for a warehouse operation. I've always said that Atlanta was the #1 choice for Amazon, and it is Atlanta's to lose. Now, I in the story mentioned that I call them the obvious 5, which is Boston, because of a lot of the universities and the colleges, and they also have a very vibrant tech industry up there. Is in that list. Austin is in that list, obviously. Again, another city that has a tremendous amount of tech culture, almost becoming like the Silicon Valley of Texas. Yeah. Dallas, Fort Worth is technically actually bigger than Austin when it comes to tech. But it's more the older tech, like AT&T and stuff.
Not the startup style, is it?
Yeah, it's not the startup style. And then obviously San Jose, but I can't see Amazon going to San Jose or Silicon Valley when they already have a satellite office there and it's on the same coast. It's just a few hours down a flight away. It doesn't make any sense. And the reason I always thought that Atlanta it was Atlanta's to lose is because one of the key things that they mentioned was the global travel was important to them. And from Atlanta, you can pretty much fly anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's a huge hub, isn't it?
It's the largest. 50 million
flights in the UK go into Atlanta.
Yeah. And then I personally hate that airport.
It's
I always end up on this terminal, and my connecting flight is on this terminal. That's why I try not to fly through Atlanta personally. But as far as the airport, a destination or or origination airport, it's perfect, you know. And also Seattle happens to be a hub of Delta Airlines. Delta is obviously the largest employer in Atlanta, and they're also located, and that's their main hub. So again, everything when it comes to at least the global travel part of it works. And people may think, well, why are you putting travel so high up? Well, think about this. San Jose Airport, and I did put this in the story. San Jose Airport, which covers Silicon Valley, got British Airways, Lufthansa, and I think the Japanese airline. I think there was one Korean airline and one Chinese airline flying straight to them. Now, all these airlines fly to San Francisco, which is literally an hour away. Okay, it's an hour away in the middle of the night when there's no traffic. It's 2 hours away in the middle of the day. But it is in the same general area, and the same airlines are flying there. Why would they fly to San Jose directly? Because the tech industry has that much of an impact. They still do require that travel. Piece is an important piece, and if you look at that, there's really only 2 cities in the U.S. that fall in that category: Dallas with American Airlines' main hub, and Atlanta with Delta's main hub. Now, you could make an argument for Chicago because it's a hub city for American, but it's not as big. You could even make an argument for Miami, but it's mostly South American hub, so it's and nothing else in Miami. I live, living in the South Florida. Nothing else in Miami makes sense for Amazon unless they want to go into South America. Then yes, it would make sense to come here. And after that, it's just like, it just, to me, that was always like the one key piece. And Georgia's a pro-business climate. Texas is a pro-business climate. A company is going to go somewhere with 50,000 people. They're going to get the best deal they can. And I think the people even in Massachusetts said, oh, we don't need to provide incentives. Yeah. Well, there's a reason Massachusetts is called Taxachusetts, because your taxes are so high. And then on top of that, you still are broke, so you can't provide it. I'm being a little facetious here, but the point is that it always made sense to me for a company the size of Amazon to have HQ2 somewhere in a southern, business-friendly climate state. And that's why I always believed that it was Atlanta's to lose, with Austin and Dallas being number 2 and number 3.
It's funny.
So we'll see.
I'm just looking at the map here of the USA, and it's like the perfect geographical opposite to, you've got top left with Seattle, and then you'd have basically bottom right with Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, Key West would be technically bottom right, but that would be a silly place to put headquarters.
It would be. I think the people in Key West probably.
Like the mainland before the Panhandle, you've got Georgia, Atlanta, so it makes perfect sense. And I agree. It would make, if I was Jeff, I'd be thinking, I want something on the East Coast, or something pretty much close to New York, Boston, or somewhere much more easy to deliver to that area. But obviously you got Florida as well, so again, it makes huge sense to have somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, but Atlanta, at least, here's the thing: when it comes to southern cities, they're all dysfunctional when it comes to public transportation. And that was one of the other key points that Amazon had. And Atlanta is about the only southern city that has a somewhat functional public transportation system, because they do have a train system. They don't just rely on buses. And so you can actually in Atlanta go from the airport to downtown and other places around the greater Atlanta area with a train, which is like, that's only normally something you find in the Northeast United States. So for Southern City, they have some basics that Amazon was asking for, and I strongly believe that Georgia is going to do everything they can financially to try to lure Amazon to town. So
it'd be interesting to see, and I agree it would make most sense. I think other than that, I would then say Austin, just because of the tech startup scene.
I'll give you my 2 reasons why I put Austin number 3, and maybe even would put it further back if I include some other cities, although I still consider the top 5 obvious 5. Having been to Austin a number of times, the place has grown, and everything now is growing outward. It's actually going toward where the airport area is, and I'm hearing from some people that live there. It's like, the housing around here has got quadrupled in some places. It's getting out of control, and there is no public transportation system in place. Texas and Austin don't necessarily get along because Austin is a little bit the progressive liberal part of Texas. And the rest of the state is very conservative. So there's a little bit of that. And when you look at the tech industry in Austin, while there are players like Apple and eBay and other global players in Austin, those are all secondary offices. They're not, and they're all satellites, smaller satellite operations. And in some cases, they're just customer support operations. Even the true pioneers in Austin are all domestic companies. They're not really global companies. And when you look then at the airport in Austin, every time you're going to want to fly somewhere that is outside the U.S., more or less, you're going to have to go through Dallas, which is a 45, 50-minute flight. Well, if you're going to do that, you might as well just move to Dallas, as a global company. And so from that point of view, that's why I think that if it came down to a Texas city and Texas has to provide money to try to lure a company into the area, I would think that Dallas would have a step above Austin. They would, and that's my belief. But
well, you know the state of play better than I would. So yeah, but I would agree. All the signs point to Atlanta.
I'd be shocked if it's not Atlanta. Let's put it that way. My prediction is it will be Atlanta. It is Atlanta's to lose. That's what I strongly believe.
Cool.
We'll see.
Cool, we will see. Well, that's the lightning round out of the way. We did have a sort of a key news piece go live today, other than the Facebook group. Just quickly remind you about the Facebook group one. For anyone, again, listening into the podcast who maybe doesn't have instant access to the link, if you go to facebook.com/groups/global e-commerce news, all one word, that will take you to the group. And you'll be able to join in live with all the discussion and news that goes on there. That was my sort of news piece from today. Yeah. And Richard, what have you?
Well, I unearthed this morning that the French government filed a complaint against Amazon for I forgot what the exact wording was, but it's basically an antitrust claim. They're saying that the company has gotten so big that they're pushing around sellers. Now, here's what the basis is. They want sellers to communicate within 24 hours. They want sellers to ship items fast. They want sellers to be responsible for defective shipments, even if it appears that the customer might be scamming them. So they want sellers, marketplace sellers, to do all the things that they're doing that made them competitive. Now, we know that everybody else in the world complains about it, that's a marketplace seller. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be competitive in the e-commerce space, you're going to have to do what Amazon does. So the French government is saying, well, that's not very fair to small businesses, and we're going to want to fine you 10 million euros for being the pompous ass. I'm like, really? Because my first reaction to this was, well, if sellers aren't happy, go sell somewhere else.
That's true.
I mean, I have a real problem with government getting involved in the private dealings of a company. Yes, I will say that Amazon is not the greatest communicator at times, and maybe some people got caught out that they didn't receive the communication what they were expected to do. We noticed, in the Australia startup, there was sort of like they left sellers a little bit hanging of what's going on with the delay. When about a month ago in Germany and other parts of Europe where there was an issue with payments being processed in a timely manner, they didn't really communicate to sellers. And we also know that Amazon sometimes makes a decision, says you have 48 hours to fix things, and you go like, while eBay will give you 6 months. But at the end of the day, it's their marketplace. And so what the French government now is basically admitting to is that Amazon's gotten so big in France that they now have to protect the local businesses. I don't know.
There's a lot of things I could say about the French government and the way that the French do things, but I'm not going to go into
socialist is the top of the list that I would come up with.
That's the right way of saying yes.
Yeah.
They do like a strike, however some people might say, an opportunity not to do any work. But as a friend of mine
has said, the only time to visit France is in August because the other 11 months are strike season. and you can get.
Oh,
and this is a European friend of mine who speaks French. Let's just say it that way. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, being British, people would probably assume that I'm probably anti-French anyway, which is not the case. France is a beautiful place. I love France. And I'm not going to.
I make fun of the French, but I love going to.
It's great. It's a great place, and I'm not going to quote Jeremy Clarkson, although I may agree with his statement largely. But enough about that.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the discussion round.
Yep.
And I think the big news, or certainly one of the big news pieces this week, was eBay buys Terapeak, or is planning to acquire Terapeak before the year is out, to provide more analytics in Seller Hub. What you
but I think there's two thoughts to this. First of all, they kind of sort of, and I think somebody, I read this somewhere, maybe it was one of the people who actually commented on our story saying they kind of crippled Terapeak and then they go and buy it, because they told Terapeak you can't provide all this data and information that you have access to. So they forced Terapeak to change the product about a year ago. And I think that the change of the product must have had some impact on Terapeak's business because it was no longer as useful as it was before. No, I know that you had an interaction with someone from Terapeak and they showed you some things and and it does provide still some very good insight.
I'm not sure how much I can say, so I'm going to have to tread very carefully here. But I did a YouTube video about a year ago. Well, it was I think it was January 3rd. The news came out right in the new year that Terapeak would no longer be providing competitor analysis or competitor research, whichever one they called it, where you could basically see what your competitors were selling and see what prices they were getting and all the rest of it. And eBay turned around and I assumed eBay turned around and said, you can no longer do that. Because there'd be no reason why Terapeak would want that information to stop. That was like not the backbone, but it was surely one of the greatest tools that they had, which so many sellers used Terapeak for. And you could just scour around after that news broke, you scour around a few forums, you'd see, oh, I'm not renewing my subscription, I'm canceling it, it's no longer useful, it's the only thing I used it for. And I did this video on YouTube, it was one of my most viewed videos, and Terapeak actually got in touch and said, your video sort of went round the head office in Toronto. We've all seen it. And I was like, shit. And they basically said, what you said in that video was very close to the truth. Obviously, we can't tell you anymore, but what we can say is you're on the right lines. And I took that to mean that, basically it wasn't their decision to get rid of competitive research. And that totally, and then they in those sort of 5-6 months, they made some great changes to product research tools and everything else. The search is now a lot faster, and Terapeak still had a huge part to play in sort of eBay selling, and it still does. It's still a very useful tool, and it isn't expensive. It isn't restrictively expensive to businesses. But I do have to agree, it all sounds very suspicious. eBay basically, let's allegedly, eBay had taken away Terapeak's main tool, main weapon, and then a year later buy them. And you've got to think there has to have been that has to have affected Terapeak's bottom line. Has to have done. Therefore,
I'll take this conspiracy one step further. I'd say that Terapeak went to eBay and threatened to sue them, and then eBay say, you know what, we'll just buy you.
Potentially. But I mean, we know what it's like when you build your business on the back of someone else's. Terapeak were buying their data from eBay. Therefore, if eBay decided they're no longer selling that data, that's not eBay. Yeah,
but from what I understood, the data was still available through the API. It was just that they were told not to be able to use it.
I think they removed it from the API.
Oh, okay.
Changed the API, I believe.
Okay.
So, and there were still ways that you could sort of guess what the competitors were doing, but Terapeak just bundled it up so nicely and made it so clean and easy to use. So to me, it still sounds like, it
sounds all a bit fishy.
Maybe
weird. Let's say weird or strange or just odd. Whatever, maybe.
Well, I mean, Terapeak well, I guess they wouldn't have sold it if they weren't happy. But I mean, I think it's still what happened back in January would have definitely affected, whether it be the EBITDA, whatever it may be, the general valuation of Terapeak. And then for eBay to come and buy it. For right now, we don't know how much they've paid for it, but it would, I would hazard a guess, it would be a lot less than what it would have been December last year.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is, I do believe that they tried to appease Terapeak earlier in the year by incorporating, because I remember receiving something through my eBay account saying that you are now agreeing to some terms with Terapeak, so that that parts of Terapeak were already being put into Seller Hub. And I found it interesting in the press release to say, well, we're going to use Terapeak to make Seller Hub better. But I believe some basic research information was already coming from Terapeak. So
that wouldn't surprise me, because again, I mean, and this did come from a contact at Terapeak who said our data is actually more accurate than what eBay themselves are showing in their back end and their dashboard. Yeah. Our data is more accurate. And eBay have actually told us that. Now, this was back then. So whether this, we all know these deals don't go ahead overnight, whether this has been something that's been lining up now for a few months, and eBay were looking at Terapeak's data and going, how can we implement this into Seller Hub? Should we just buy them? You know, who knows? But yeah, Terapeak's data is great, to be fair to them.
Yes, absolutely.
And next up, the next discussion point is a very interesting one. It's GM, General Motors, has unveiled the marketplace for in-car reservations and shopping. And this is I like this. This is like top tech sort of stuff now. This is like the first in-car marketplace system which we've ever come across. And General Motors seems to be rolling this out. Now, to put this into sort of layman's terms, this is for stuff like restaurant reservations. I think you can even do hotel reservations. Starbucks, I think, is on there. McDonald's, are they on there? I know McDonald's.
I'm not sure. I know that I'm making a reference to McDonald's app, and I'll talk about that.
But basically, the idea is that you'll be able to talk to your, almost in a sort of an almost like a smart speaker way, whether that be Google Home or Alexa. You'll be able to talk to your car's dash and sort of bring it, and it'll be able to show you things like where you're close to or whatever, and you'll be able to order food or reserve tables or reserve hotel rooms and stuff from inside your car.
So at some point you figure you can go, Alexa, okay, Google, hey Siri.
Well, I know
it would be integrated with one of the three, you'd figure.
Yeah, because I'm sure one of them was talking with Ford. I'm sure.
Well, you know, there was at one time. I think Apple.
Was it Siri? I think I've been Siri.
On this car.
Siri's not in this anymore.
Yeah,
Siri's a good base.
I actually have to think about whether my Echo Dot was on and how far away it was.
Mine's in the other room, thankfully.
The other room, so But in any case, so I put a link into our little outline that we do, and hopefully Dave will put it in under the video.
It's in the one below.
Okay, great. And that points to something that McDonald's. I happened to see this just the other day. I don't go to McDonald's much. But it was one of those, okay, I guess this is the only place right now very quickly with not much of a line, and I'm hungry. And they were touting a brand new app that allows you to pre-order and pick up your food through McDonald's. Mm-hmm. Now, okay, pre-order is not new. A lot of restaurants do it, and you can go and pick it up. But what was interesting with this is they were actually using the drive-through as well. And especially in the United States, we are so freaking lazy. Why would we get out of the car to pick up our food, So this makes me think now with this whole GM deal is you effectively, you could go through, you can go, talk to your car, say, okay, we're going to go to McDonald's at XYZ, wherever, Fort Lauderdale here at this corner, and please order me this, and this, and then it would send the order over to that McDonald's, and as you arrive, the McDonald's will realize it is your car because all these integrations exist already, and will start then bagging your food, and as you go through the drive-through, you take it with you.
It's a very cool
much
concept.
Simpler can it possibly get?
It's a very cool concept. It's not the first time I've heard this. The first time I heard this was about 4 years ago, and I believe it was a toasty, you probably call it like a grilled cheese shop in Santa Monica. and they were doing it. They'd set up an app, and it will use geolocation. You placed an order on the app, and whenever you then got to the within say 5 minutes, whenever you got to the store, it would use your phone's location to make sure you could literally walk in. They would hand you the bag.
Yeah. And this app that I pointed to, McDonald's does use geolocation already, so that's why I put the link in there, because it is, they're already looking at this, and it just goes back to that whole concept of, are you going to ever need order takers again at these fast food places?
Are you ever going to talk to a person ever again?
Yeah. All those people that want $15 an hour are being replaced by technology.
Again, this is what we talked about before. And even in my McDonald's here, we have screens now where you can just literally go, yeah, and go collect it. And I want to quickly mention that whilst this app, this like ordering app sounds great, I've seen it in real life. It was really annoying. I was in Rome. And we have this thing where wherever we go in the world, we have to try the McDonald's to see how different it tastes. They've really suckered us in on that one. So far, by the way, France is winning. France does a really great chicken. It's seasoned and everything's fantastic. We went to Rome.
I saw the big Dutch driving through the Netherlands, and I wanted to stop, and everybody in the car said, "No, you're not stopping at McDonald's to get the big Dutch."
You look. It's cool to see what they have on the menu. Apparently, in the Philippines, we didn't go there, but when me and Matt went to the Philippines, they did McSpaghetti, and I was like, I want to try it. But anyway,
sorry for interrupting your story. So
yeah, I was behind using one of these machines. It was packed. It's right near the Spanish Steps in Rome. Mad busy. And this couple in front of us had this like QR code on the mobile app, and they were scanning it, and for about 5 minutes the thing wasn't scanning. And when you're hungry and getting pushed about by bustly people, I just wanted to take him and his phone and throw him through a building. So yes,
remember, you were in Italy. It's another country that likes to strike. Maybe the tech went on strike.
I nearly went on strike. I was about to strike him in the face with his own phone. So yeah, it was. By the time that he'd been stood there doing this with his phone, he could have just selected what he wanted and gone. But no, people want to use tech to make their lives easier, and it was making my life incredibly worse.
Yeah, I will say this. I do see that a little bit, like going through the airports and people messing around with the tech and trying to use those boarding passes. Now, I've started doing it, but I also kind of I have my boarding pass ready to go as I walk up. I see too many people.
Oh, Rich.
Are you going to show a boarding pass? Oh, let me get the come on, you know.
Let's not get Rich started on an airport, rant. This could go on while he's
if anybody's on my Facebook page, look at my airport rants. It's like there.
I know the pain for sure, but yeah, no, it's the same. And I think it's the same here. We have like self-service checkouts in supermarkets.
Yeah, we do too.
If you know how they work, it's very simple and very convenient. However, most people don't. They've never been on training to this, and it's infuriating.
Yeah, it is. But like everything, it'll take time, and it'll get better.
Adoption will come over time.
And we can sit here and make fun of whatever
the new thing is then. Yeah,
the reality is it's happening.
Yeah, we're just early adopters, Rich. That's all we are. We're just trend-setting early adopters.
Yeah. So anyway, speaking of early adoption and trend-setting,
yes, good link. I like it.
eBay apparently is seriously considering adding cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin in the future. Now, this came out of an article from a Yahoo financial interview they did with what's the guy's name? Cutler. This is what happens when you don't have everything up and running like you're supposed to. You sound like a baffling buffoon. Anyways, they Yahoo interviewed a guy from where is this? I know his name was Cutler. Okay, Scott Cutler. Yahoo interviewed a guy named Scott Cutler, who's the senior vice president of eBay Americas, and he basically said, "Yes, we are seriously looking or considering, cryptocurrencies." Now, saying seriously considering doesn't really mean anything. Obviously, anybody's going to seriously consider. I'm sure Jeff Bezos is seriously considering it as well. But most people don't come out and say it. And eBay did come out and say it. And that obviously created a bit of a hubbub because anybody who's been following cryptocurrencies in the last month has seen Bitcoin break through 10,000, almost hit 20,000 over the weekend in a matter of 10 days. Other currencies like Litecoin and the, Ethereum have skyrocketed. I mean, it's all, and everyone, the bubble. Yeah, there is a bubble in all of this in some form or fashion. It's kind of the same thing as in the late 90s when it came to all the .coms and everybody. If you had a .com at the end of your name and you had an IPO, your stock went from $1 to $100 and they become a millionaire overnight. And yet secretaries with stock options that walk away a month later and could live the rest of their life. Never work again. Yeah, it's all going to come down to some kind of end. But the reality is, I do believe the cryptocurrencies are going to stick around in some form of fashion. And one does have to look at the possibility. And so this piece kind of like inspired me to start thinking about adding more cryptocurrency news to our site. Not so much just all the stuff that's going on, but how it relates to e-commerce. Who are the players, So you'll see a few more crypto stories here and there that I will put together, and Dave is probably going to have a few as well.
Yeah. I think it's one of those. We've mentioned crypto for the past 3 times we've done this, and it's not because me and Richard are big fans of cryptocurrency. It's the fact that it's just becoming that much more in the news. People are talking about it that much more, which is probably driving the price of the coins up as more people are becoming aware of them. I literally get a call or a text at least every 2 days with someone saying, so what's Bitcoin? Or so how does Litecoin work? How do I get Ethereum? And I don't know how I've turned into this. I'm not a guru of any information on this, but because I know a little bit and people don't know anything, they started turning to me, and it's weird because I don't like giving advice on this stuff. Do your own research, really.
Yeah, and that's the one thing is, I mean, and what I want to say this is that if you're going to try to invest, I mean, I've seen people talk about, and I think I mentioned it in that story, that some people are taking up mortgages to buy. No.
Yeah, remortgaging the house. I've heard stories people taking up to invest.
If you have $100 extra laying around to put in there just to see where it goes, that's one thing, okay? But don't buy it on the credit card.
No, that's always my advice to anyone. It's like, listen, if you want to, because I wish I'd got involved a year ago when I first. But 2020 hindsight's a brilliant thing. But the only way when I could right, I'm going to actually give a damn about it now is putting some money in it. Then you care. And what I said, I like 50 quid in it just to start with, just to see what happens. See if my guesses of what would work and what the scope of play was right. And that's basically what I say to everyone. Whatever you can afford to lose, buy some and see what happens. And then you'll learn very quickly. You'll start paying more attention, almost subliminally, to what people are saying about the different coins. But don't max out a credit card thinking, oh, I'll double my money in a month and I'll be like $5,000 up. That ain't gonna happen. Yeah. Well, it might, but hell,
it might happen. But it's a risk that you don't want to take.
You're affecting. Especially if you've got family, people remortgaging their houses. It's like you've got this family home. Don't do this. Really, honestly, don't do it.
And the reality is, Bitcoin, for example, went from being worthless like $1 or so to $20,000. Well, if that's a 20,000% increase. Well, even if it goes to $1 million, like some people have been predicting, that is nowhere near that type of increase anymore. Percentage-wise.
Literally, if you want to be investing in Bitcoin now, you could make a lot more money a lot quicker by getting lucky on altcoins, because the amount of effort it would take for a coin to go from 50 cents to $1 is a lot less than what it will take Bitcoin to go from 20,000 to 40,000, and that's the same increase that you're going to see.
Yeah. But back to a little bit with eBay here and e-commerce, to put it back into that realm. Of course, I mean, in Newegg is taking Bitcoin. We talked about Overstock.com earlier, was already one of the early leaders in Bitcoin. There are some that have entered that space. There are costs involved in dealing with Bitcoins from a user point of view, either from a receiver as well as a user point of view that may or may not make Bitcoin interesting. The high volatility of Bitcoin and many of the other coins is also a big problem. You literally are going to have to take these coins as you receive them and immediately turn them to a fiat currency or cash. Doing anything else is crazy, unless you use it to sell overstock stuff that's just sitting around the warehouse and you don't care and you want to get a couple coins. Maybe that's what eBay is thinking, and that's kind of what I highlight in the story. Maybe they want to put, say, hey, we'll accept Bitcoin up to, let's say, $50 worth or whatever, something in a small amount that wouldn't impact anybody's life per se. Maybe this is how they're going to experiment with it. And there's other issues that have to be resolved. For example, how does that work with the agreement with PayPal? Would that be a competition to PayPal? It's good. It's an interesting piece of news. What will happen from it, we don't know, but it is good for anybody involved in e-commerce to at least keep track of what's happening with cryptocurrencies. They're not going to replace regular currencies or fiat currency anytime soon, but a lot of people are getting into the space, using blockchains for all kinds of things. So, and I mean, big people like UPS and Microsoft and others. So, to totally discount it as a bubble or as nothing is also wrong. So that's my 2 cents.
Indeed. And finally, again, keep this one quick. Google and Amazon competition heats up. There's been a bit of a it's sort of been a very, what's that? Bit of a bust up? Yeah, sort of, but it's been very quietly done. Basically, Amazon stopped selling Google's products, so the Chromecast, the home speaker, anything which they pretty much did their own version of. They didn't sell it on the Amazon marketplace. So obviously, Chromecast, you have the Fire TV stick. The home, you have the Echo, and no matter what happened, these products would appear and then they get taken down. And Google sort of took a bit of a disliking into that. So in retaliation, they blocked YouTube from working on any Amazon devices. So any Amazon Fire tablets, they basically stopped YouTube from working. And Amazon sort of went, hey, why have you done that? Google turned around and went, well, you're not selling any of our products. Why should you be getting the perks of our Googliness? It's almost like, it's like kids in the playground sort of stuff. Well, he said that, and well, she did that, so I'm not playing with her anymore. And it's all very silly. And basically, Google made Amazon concede, is how this is. There's not many companies who I think could really force the hand of Amazon, really. Google is perhaps one of a handful. And that's what happened. Amazon was the first to concede, gone, all right, then I'll start selling you products. And
here's the part I found really interesting about this little dust-up.
Ground so much.
Sorry?
It just reminded me of the schoolyard so much. It's like,
so last week we had this big thing with the Federal Communications Commission and net neutrality, and leading up to this vote, about the FCC eliminating the net neutrality clause, was all this conversation about ISPs are going to be able to block legal traffic. They're going to be able to censor things. They're going to be able to do this and do that, and on and on and on. Okay, all somewhat true. Not that the average ISP would probably do it. What most of them want to do is they want to go to people like YouTube and Netflix and say, hey, your traffic is so much, because in some cases 89% of the data being transferred. If you want this to come into their people's homes, you need to pay us more. That's really what where things were going to some extent. But so here was all these pundits about what the internet is about to break if the FCC does that. In the meantime, there are two people on the internet that are fighting each other about content and, guess what? Access, blocking.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like,
on their own.
Everybody's paying attention to ISPs, yet the large companies are doing exactly what
blocking Google products from being on their marketplace, whether being sold by them or a third party, it didn't matter. Yeah. And Google was blocking YouTube on an Amazon device.
And then to make it even more hypocritical, Google and Amazon were all pro net neutrality. So he's sitting there like, wait a second, guys, you are right now currently the worst offenders of the problem that you're trying to tell the FCC to not undo. It's like, and if you and here's where it impacts e-commerce. Those of us who have been around eBay a little bit remember about a few years back when Google kind of downgraded eBay's listings because they were having a spat with eBay. So this is not the first time we've had large corporations on the internet fighting each other. But net neutrality on the ISP level is, that was like the end of the internet. Guys, you got to pay attention way beyond the last mile. Okay, there's a lot going on here, and I'm one of these people who believes, yes, we need net neutrality. I'm not against net neutrality. I'm very much for it, but I think it needs to be looked upon well beyond just the last mile of that. And this particular story with Google and Amazon just happened to happen the same week as the whole conversation about net neutrality. And I'm sitting there going, shaking my head. It's like, no one's paying any attention to this.
I was going to say, it largely flew under the radar. Yeah. Everyone was talking about FCC and net neutrality. And in the meanwhile, Google and Amazon are having their own little book in the background.
Yeah. And both of them were sitting there going with the same posters. Oh, save net neutrality. Oh, by the way, no, don't sell our stuff.
No, YouTube for you.
Yeah, like you said, little children in the playground because they were like totally hypocritical about everything they were doing, So
yeah, no, it is. It's such a funny one, and like I said, turned out that Amazon have yielded. Apparently, there's still conversations going on between Google and Amazon in the background. Apparently, Google Home products and Google products will start being displayed on Amazon. Surely that's, Amazon aren't going to start selling them. Sure, it's going to be on a third party. But
that's fair. I mean, I would say, yeah, there's no reason for Amazon to sell the Google products, but it would be improper for Google to take down legal products such as Google's products if a third party seller wants to sell them. And that's really, I think, where a lot of this was.
And it is curious because obviously Google are they're very much like Apple with their products. You don't see them on sale that often. Obviously, they did Black Friday on the smart stuff. But largely, the price is the price. You can buy it at the same price in a shop as you can in the Google store, just like Apple. But it was clearly enough to annoy Google, and therefore they or whatever they called it. It's not geo-locking, but they basically locked it from the Amazon operating system. And yeah, it was.
It was just comical. I thought it was comical.
And like I said, as far as I'm not sure if YouTube is now back on Fire devices or not.
Well, it was not. It was supposed to happen in January, so it was actually never removed. They were putting a message out. Starting in January, you will no longer get this content.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we'll see whether that upholds or not. But this was just a bit of a fun one, and like I said, the time with net neutrality was very interesting. But yeah, Amazon was the first to yield, so it is a very small victory for Google.
Mark that on the calendar. Amazon yielded.
Yeah.
All right, I have to say that I have to run, so I apologize.
We have gone over slightly, but with that said, that is the end of the show for this week. There will be no show next week. Obviously, it's Christmas Day. We are hoping to be back with you on either the 28th or the 29th. We'll drop you an email if you are free. It'd be great to have you either with us live or to see the recorded version. And I imagine we're doing sort of a year in review of 2017.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at some of the biggest stories of 2017, which include things like Amazon buying Whole Foods and the impact of that. And then we're going to both predict what we're going to see in 2018, and then we can see next year how right or wrong we were. Absolutely. So that'll be a fun one coming up. Like I said, 28th, 29th of December, in between Christmas and New Year. With that said, there's nothing else left for me to say other than thank you to you watching this or listening to this for not only your attention today, but your attention since we started this journey with eSellerCafe. We started this back in March. It's been a hell of a year for eSellerCafe. I've grown past my expectations massively. I'm pretty sure we've done the same for Richard too. And yeah, we have no intentions of slowing down. We have exciting things planned for 2018, and hoping to bring you all the latest and greatest news from e-commerce going forward. And if you're from one of the countries where we offended or we made some disparaging remarks, do realize this is done in jest and with fun. We can take it. You can make fun of us in the exact same way. We will take it.
You know, whatever you like. I've heard it all before. I said, there's no malice or anything.
No malice, none of that.
It's all fun and games. Yeah. We just want to try and make these a little bit easier for you to listen to.
Lighthearted,
we don't want to be that boring newsreader type. So yeah,
and today in news.
What's that?
And in today's news.
In today's news, the latest from boring.
If you want boring, there's something called BBC in the UK.
BBC World Service. Go and put that.
Yeah, that'll put you right to sleep.
But with that said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you if you subscribe to the channel, to the email list. We really do appreciate the support. It does mean a lot. As well, thank you to Richard, as always. The incredible amount of work he puts into eSellerCafe. The large part of its success is purely down to him.
No, it's not.
It's true. It is true. So nothing left to say other than have a fantastic Christmas, happy holidays. If you whatever it is you're celebrating, and we'll be with you in about a week and a half's time, I imagine. And we'll be back with you after that in the new year. So
awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy your time with the family and the friends, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.